Okay, so we're going to start by seeing how we download Anaconda, and with that the Jupyter Notebook. I've actually gone ahead and removed it from my computer so we can go through all the steps together. Go to your web browser, search for Anaconda download. Once that comes up, you're going to look for this first link, Anaconda Python, free download. Go ahead and click that. Once your site loads, you're going to go ahead and scroll down to make sure you have the correct version, meaning if you have a Windows machine, a Mac machine, or a Linux machine, you can get that for any of them. Go ahead and make sure yours is highlighted. I'm using Windows, so go ahead and download Python 3.7 for Windows. I'm going to click download, and that'll only take a couple seconds. Okay, once your program is done downloading, we can just open it. Follow the on-screen instructions. You're going to leave everything as is. Install. And right now while it's installing, I'll tell you we use Anaconda because what it does is it comes with all of the libraries that a data scientist would use pre-installed. It makes our lives a lot easier so we don't have to install each individual package on our own. And then what we can do is go ahead and just load those packages into our Jupyter Notebook when we need to use them, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about here in the next little bit as I go through opening a Jupyter Notebook and starting to work with some data similar to how you've been doing on Data Camp. Alright, once everything is done, we can finalize our installation. I'm going to unclick these. I don't need the tutorials. I'd recommend you do that as well. Finish up. We now have Anaconda downloaded. So if you open up your files, you will see an Anaconda Navigator at the top most likely. We also see this Anaconda 3 folder. Open it up. You're going to be launching Anaconda Navigator. Takes a minute to load. You can decide whether or not you want to click yes or no here. But now we're in Anaconda Navigator, and it has a number of different options for us to use. You can actually scroll down and there's more than what you even see at the top. What we're always going to be using in this class is a Jupyter Notebook, so you can just click Launch. And it is going to take you into a web browser, but you are not actually using the internet for this. You can use this anywhere, anytime you'd like. What I've done is on my desktop, I have set up a folder. So if I navigate to my desktop, I've made a folder called Week 2, and you can actually just see that folder here if I get to my desktop. Within that, I've got a few of the things we're going to need. I have some data files I'm going to open. I've got some code I'm going to walk you through here in a little bit. And I've got the assignment, which is just a practice assignment, which I'm going to walk us through the solving it and then have you guys solve it on your own. But that folder is physically located on my desktop. And all I did is navigate to desktop and then Week 2. And what you're going to do is make a folder somewhere, wherever that might be. You can put it in your documents. If you want to go back up a level, you just click the folder. You can put it on your desktop, whatever you want to do. But again, mine is on my desktop, so I'm going to navigate to that. Your folder is going to be where you store the code you write, your Jupyter Notebook, and where you put the data that you're going to use in that notebook, the data that I'm going to provide you on D2L that you're going to download. I'm going to provide you with 2 stock files, Apple and Disney. And for those of you who don't know where they come from, it does say on the project slides, or rather on the project document, import stock data from Yahoo Finance. I will quickly go over how to do that, but I'm actually giving you the data so you don't have to. It's finance.yahoo.com. navigate here. Select a company. Let's do Facebook, I guess. And then just go down here to historical data. And you can change your settings at the top if you need to. You can change daily, monthly, you can change your period. Once you do that, hit apply, click download data, and you'll get a file if you want to do that on your own. But again, I have them here for you. So what you're going to do is click new. Under new, you're going to get Python 3. It's going to open up a notebook like this. The first thing I'm going to have you do, come up here, click the word untitled. I'm going to call mine Stark_week 2. You can call it whatever you want. But that is now the name of it. If you come back here, you can see it's green, Stark_week2.ipynb. That stands for Interactive Python Notebook. And here I am using it right here. So the first couple things I'm going to show you here before we get into the slide, or into the project, that sheet down here. I mentioned that we use Anaconda because it has all the libraries already located within it. So, for example, we are using a thing called pandas. If you want to import the pandas library, and we'll look at why we use these and what we use them for in a little bit, but you can simply type import pandas as PD. You can import NumPy as NP. So these are two very common libraries that we're going to be using quite a bit. They both help us with basic data manipulation and making our lives a lot easier within Python. So let's say I've typed something, whatever it might be. The way we run a cell, or the way we actually run this code, is you can click run, but that will get pretty tiresome. Instead, hold the shift key and hit enter. So you notice right up here a second ago it turned into a little asterisk. That meant it was currently running. As soon as it was done, it filled it with a number. Number 1, that was the first line, or the first set of code we ran. If we want to do something like print hello world, shift enter, a 2 will appear. And here's the output. So we told it code, here is the output down here. Okay, so that is how we run code. Shift and enter. What we put in the gray boxes is what it's going to do. Once we run that, what comes below that is what is going to be the output. So we say x equals 2 plus 5, and we hit shift enter. Nothing is going to be printed because we are saving the number 7 to the variable x. But instead, if we put x down here and hit shift enter, the number 7 will appear below. Okay? Here we have output. Because we didn't use the word print, this is actually output. It knows that we want that. Instead, if we do print x, what do you think will happen? Well, we're going to get that. We're going to get the answer. Because we're telling it just to print that number, not actually set it as output, it's not going to put the word out, but it's going to still come down as the, I guess, white little area below that gray box. Now, if you notice up here, I put in quotes. Single or double will do the same thing, the word hello world. So if we come down here and we say print x, do you think this is going to print a 7 or something else? Well, it's going to print the letter x. Because when we put quotes, it means literally print out what is between those quotes. It doesn't matter that 7 has been saved to the variable x up here. If we put it in quotes, it's just simply going to print out the x. But that doesn't mean if we put x in here, we tell it to print x again, that 7 is still saved. We just have that option. Okay, so those are the very basics of how a Jupyter Notebook works. What we're going to do next is look at the assignment. We're going to look at how we run through the assignment. We're going to look at actually solving a problem, calculating some variables using some of the skills you've learned last week and this upcoming week in data camp. and I'm going to go through step by step my code to solve the assignment. And then hopefully you guys can follow along. If you really wanted a challenge, don't use the variable or the data that I download. Go right to Yahoo Finance and download your own. But if you don't want to and you just want to work with what I have, you're welcome to do that as well. So that will be the next part of this video. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is this assignment, which is on the right. I'm going to kind of walk you through it. Normally this would be an assignment that I have due in class, so we're going to actually ignore a couple parts, these last two. You don't need to upload your code to D2L, and you don't need to discuss it next class. I'm actually going to go through it with you right here. We're going to kind of discuss it virtually. You can ask me questions if you have them, that kind of thing. So what I've done is I've got my code over here, and I'm going to talk us through it. But the way you would start, the way we just did before, new program, open one up. Yours is going to be blank. I'll actually come in here, follow the name, your name, underscore Python, underscore 1. So if we go ahead and do that, rename, you see the name has changed. We've gone ahead and completed number 1. Okay, so we're going to import stock data. And again, if we go back to our desktop folder, I have 2 files which I will provide to you. If we expand this, we see what type of file. And this is important. You need to know what type of file you have. I have CSV, comma, separated value files. I have them called AAPL for Apple, all capital letters, DIS for Disney, all capital letters. These things matter because we need to reference them. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import our 2 libraries. These are the libraries. I kind of just make it a habit of importing these to begin every project. You're going to use them a great deal of the time. So if you just make it a habit of these being your first 2 lines, then you don't have to worry about it later on in the project. So for now, we're going to import the library pandas, which helps us work with data, and NumPy, which helps us kind of work with scientific numbers and some analysis. We probably aren't going to use NumPy today, but like I said, we're just going to get into the habit of always doing that. And what this code refers to, we're importing this pandas library, and we're giving it a shorthand. The shorthand is PD. The reason why is every time we want to reference something within this library, we don't want to type out the word pandas. It's just going to get too long and tedious, especially because we're going to be doing it a lot, and the longer your code is, the more you're going to do it. So we're going to say import pandas as PD. Now when we want to reference pandas, we just type PD. So I'm going to hold Shift and hit Enter, and there we go. We've run the first box of code. Both those libraries are now loaded. Okay, so let's go into step 2. We're going to open our CSV file, and we're going to import it, calling it, in my case, I'm going to just call it AAPL. You can call it whatever you want. So this right here is the name of the file once I'm putting it into my Jupyter notebook. Okay, so the pandas library has a number of resources available to you to import data. You can import an Excel file, you can import CSV, you can import text, you can import data files, zipped files, whatever different type of file you want, there's a way to import it with pandas. I'm showing you right here, we have CSV files as I showed. So we're going to do PD, in other words, it's telling this program go to the pandas library and use the read_CSV function. So we're going to pandas, PD, telling it to use this specific function. And what we're going to do is say, okay, go out into the folder we're currently working on, your working directory, which if you want to see what that is, just click your other tab, and find the file called aapl.csv. So now we're doing that, and we're going to save it to this file aapl. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure it loaded that file correctly. So the way I can do that, there's quite a few ways. I'm going to say aapl.head. And what this is going to do is say, show me this Apple file, but just the top 5 rows of that. So head by default will show me the top 5 rows. In addition to that, if you wanted to see the bottom 5 rows, you could put tail, so aapl.tail. In fact, I'll change the Disney one down here to show you what that looks like. Alright, so once we have this written, Shift Enter, and here we go. We now have a file. That file has the date, the company name, or rather the company ticker, and the stock price. Again, this is all the information I pulled and cleaned a little bit from Yahoo Finance, but here we go. If we want to see what type of data things are, if we want other information, what we could do is replace head with the word info, and it'll give us information about that data. So these are the data types. We have an object, and a float. If you wanted to see descriptive statistics, we can do describe, and there are 72 observations for price. The average is 70, the standard deviation is $28. Here's your minimum, your quartiles, and your max price. But yeah, we're just going to go back to head. As you notice, this counter goes up every time because we are running a new line of code. So here we have it. Now I said you could do the same thing down here, only with tail. So instead of seeing the top 5 observations, we're going to import Disney and look at the bottom 5. And you can tell it's the bottom 5 because this bold left-hand number just counts the cells. You can also tell it's the bottom because the date here starts in 2010, whereas here we have 2015, which is the end. Okay, so we've imported those two data sets. We're going to put them together. We're going to put them together, and there's a couple of different ways to do this. I'm going to actually make this bigger so we can see all the code, or at least a little bit more of it. So we have 2 files. I'm going to just concatenate them, which means I'm going to stack them on top of each other. In other words, I'm going to take all of my Disney observations and just put them right on top of all my Apple observations and put them right on top of all my Disney observations. And one thing I want to show you is within head, if we want to see more than 5, you can type any number. So it's going to show me 100 observations now instead of just 5. But what we're going to do is make a new file. I just called it apple_disney_concat. You don't have to use as long a names. I just did it for this example so we knew exactly what was happening. And we're going to use that pandas library again. So we do pd.concat. We open and close parentheses. And within there we have to enter a list of files. We're going to do this for Apple and for Disney, the 2 files we made up here. And all that's going to do is stack them, and there we go. So we have Apple, and then we have Disney, and it's showing us all of that information here. So again, I don't want to keep that many showing, so there we go. Okay, next part of our program says calculate stock returns. Hopefully this is something that everybody remembers how to do. Okay, it's already in order. Luckily everything is sorted, so that makes that easier. But for those who do not remember, we are going to calculate returns as the new price minus the old price divided by the old price. So in order to do that, we need to get a lagged price. We need to know what was the last price. So that's a new thing we're going to learn. How do we make new variables? Well, I'm going to just type it out here and go through it step by step, even though it's listed below. So we have our data set. Okay, you can see what it looks like up here. I just told us we wanted a new variable. So I'm going to take my data set, open up a set of brackets, and come up with a new variable. I'm going to call it lag price. So what this is doing is saying make a new variable, what I put in brackets and then in quotes, and add it to this file. So when we're done, we're going to have date, company price, and lag price. Well, what is that going to be equal to? It's going to be equal to the price lagged, right? So we want this 24.68 to show up here. So we're going to say it's going to be equal to that file. And what we want to do is lag it one. Okay? So we say take the price and shift it one spot. So it's going to take this price and shift it down one. It's going to take this price and shift it down one. Now I'll show you really quickly what that looks like before we address the next issue. There you go. So we have a lag price. This is the price today on February 1st. This is the price last month on January 1st. NAN just stands for not a number, and that's perfectly okay here because there is no lagged price to bring down. So this is essentially a missing value. Now the only problem here is that on the last observation of Apple and the first observation of Disney, where they touch each other, where they transition from Apple to Disney, that is going to take the last price of Apple, bring it down one cell, and match it to the first price of Disney, which is not okay. If you look down here, the code that I actually use is a little bit different. So what that's doing is it's taking care of this issue. So what we're going to do is modify this just a little bit by saying dot group by, open and closing your parentheses, and putting the word company. So I can talk about what this is doing really quick. It's saying within our file Apple Disney concat, we're going to do something by group. What is the group? It's company. So what that's saying is do something for all of this company, AAPL, and then stop. And then do something for the next company, DIS, and then stop. And it would do this as many times as you have different companies. The result is going to be every time it switches companies, you're going to get that NAN value because there is no prior price for that company. So if we run this again, it's going to look no different, but if you were to find the values for Disney, you would see that that is in fact fixed. Now let's see if we can actually just print them without much trouble. Alright, so that didn't print it. I have the settings set to just minimize how many it shows me. There are ways to just show it to you, but it's beyond the scope of right now. Just take my word that what we have done is resolve this issue of the first observation. If you're not sure how that is, shoot me an email, post in the discussion boards, we can talk about that. But the next step, we now have lagged price, which means we really have everything we need to calculate returns, right? We have price and lag price, that's all you need. So let's make a new variable. All right, I'm going to call it return. What are we going to set return equal to? Again, this is going to be new price, or just regular price, minus old price. Divided by old price. Okay, but there is an issue here. This does take order of operations into consideration. In other words, what would happen here is to take price minus 1. Why? Because lag price divided by lag price would be the first step of this. That's not what we want, so let's make sure we add parentheses to do price minus lag price, get that value, and then divide it by lag price. And so with that, we're going to add a new column. There we go. These are returns. They're listed as a decimal. If you wanted to make it a percentage, you could add a new line. You could come up to this line and multiply by 100. I'll just do it down here to show you what it means. All right, so we're going to say return, and we're going to say it's equal to Apple Disney concat return. times 100. And there you go. 6% return, 14% return, 11 minus 1, and so on. I'm going to leave it back as a decimal. So there we go. And there you have it. So if we come over here, now it says average stock returns across each month. In other words, there's a Disney and there's a return for Apple, and those occur each month. I want to know if you average the two of those together to get one monthly return. Okay, so what we have is this doubled. I'm just going to remove that. That code was the exact same as this where I had typed it out. So the first thing we want to do here is this first bit of code. And every year I just give this code to people. It's beyond the scope of this first course. I'll explain what it's doing briefly, but just you can literally copy and paste this. What this is doing is it's converting our date variable, which right now is just a string. It's just characters together. This program does not know that it is a date. It just views it as same as it views Apple, or same as if I had other text in there. We are telling it that this is an actual date. That's all we're doing. We're saying go to pandas to date time, which means it's going to convert it to a format that is recognized as dates. We're going to say, well, what column do we do that to? We do it to this file, the date column, and we're just going to overwrite it. So literally you're not going to visibly notice any difference. I will show you what the difference is very briefly. So if we go Apple Disney concat.info, you can see date is an object. If we run this code below, if we convert it, nothing happened. You didn't see anything. This number appeared though, so we know it's run. If we run this again, you can see date is now a date time. Again, it's beyond the scope of day one for Python, but it is necessary that it be done, so my suggestion is just copy and paste this code. So now that we have that sorted, now that we have that as a date time, we're going to sort our data. I want you to get an average return by date. But right now we have this month, January 2010, at the top for Apple, and somewhere way down here where we can't see is going to be January 2010 for Disney. But we want them to be next to each other so we can see what's going on. In other words, how do we sort data? We're going to take our file, and we're going to say period, sort values, sort underscore values. Okay, this is what it's going to look like. The problem is we have a lot of columns: date, company, price, lag price, and return. What are we going to tell it to sort by? That's really what it wants to know. We're going to say sort by date. We want the date column to be in order because we want to have January for Apple and January for for Disney next to each other. So if we do that, what it's going to do is sort it, but nothing's going to happen. It's going to sort it, but not save it. We need to add the words in place equals true. What this is going to do, and you're going to see this quite a bit throughout the course, this in place equals true, I guess, argument or statement. It's saying sort it and save it. So do the sorting in place, saving that output. So if you do it, we run it, there you go. Here is 2010, January, Apple and Disney. And as you recall up here when I did the group by statement, I told you, but I couldn't show you the way I had it set up, at least not easily. I couldn't show you that the first observation of Disney would be missing. But now that we've sorted it differently, you can see that is in fact the case. If we hadn't done the group by company, this first observation of Disney would be there because it would have taken the last price of Apple. But now we have our data sorted and we are all set. So there's a couple of ways to do what we're going to do now. going back to the Excel, or I'm sorry, the Word document, we're going to average stock returns across each month. Okay, so it's going to give us another chance, and I'm going to move this down. It's going to give us another chance to use that group by. Okay, and I'm going to actually go through it piece by piece with you guys so you can kind of see what each part of the code is doing. So monthly returns equal Disney concat. So I'm making a new file, I'm calling it monthly returns. I'm saying it's going to come from this file that we have right here. Okay, if I want to just get the average, right? Let's see, returns. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm making a new file. I'm saying take this file where there's 2 observations and give me the average of all the returns. Right now it's just saying calculate the average of all returns. So this should have, oops, apologize. There we go. There's only one observation, that's why it didn't work. So this is the average of all of those. Okay? But that's not what we want. What we want is, if you look back here, we want the average across each month. So this is where we want to use a group by again. We want to group by date, right? We want to have these 2 numbers together. We want to have these 2 February 2010 dates together, and so on. Okay? That's what we have right here. So we're going to add dot group by date. Do everything by the dates and calculate the average for that. Save it to our new file. And we want to look at that file. We can do a couple of things. Let's just first go monthly returns. Okay. If we want to just look at the top, we can do the head. And there you go. First date, right? 2010, the average of 2 not a numbers, or the average of 2 missing values is not a number. Next month, okay, the average of 6.5 and 5.7, about 6.1, which is what we have. If you actually did the math, you would find that is the average, and so on. So now we have a new file where we have the average returns. I'm going to describe that file, right? We had 71, I'm going to scroll to the top, okay? We had 71 observations for Apple and 71 observations for Disney. When we combined the two, we had 142 observations. However, we've now collapsed those again back down to 71 because now we have an Apple and a Disney observation combined into each of these single dates. And then this last part, this is how you export your data, okay? Just like when we read data in, you can read in data in so many different ways. Excel, CSV, text, Stata, Python, pickled data, which we aren't familiar with yet. All different kinds of data. We can do the same exporting. So all we want to do is say monthly returns, name of our file, and we're going to say to Excel, right? So we're going to essentially be sending it to an Excel file. What we're going to type in here is whatever you want it to be. Okay, let's just type it start week 1 answer. Okay, you can type it whatever you want. What this is going to do is take this file, convert it to an Excel file with this name. It's going to put it in this folder, right in our working directory. So I'll run it. There we go. Here we have our data, which didn't open yet. Let's see. There we go. right in our folder. And if you wanted to open that up, just double click it. And there you go. There's our dates. And you can convert that if you want. It's because we converted it to date time. So in other words, the time, we had no time component, so it just sets it equal to 0. In other words, the very beginning of that date. You can reformat that in Excel if you want. We could drop the time if you want. There's lots of different things, but that's all it's doing. Here's our returns. Here's our dates from 2010 down through 2015. And there's our averages. So there you go. That is the project. A couple of brief additional things. It does autosave, but not that frequently. That's how I have mine set up. So be sure to save. Just Control S, no different. If you don't like Control S, you can click the little disk here. You can go to File and Save. There's different ways of doing it, but Control S. Okay, so that is how we save this. A couple of other shortcuts that you're going to want to know. Let's say you're working through your code, you have a bunch written, you realize you forgot something up here. You wanted to put some code in between 5 and 6, but how do you add a cell? Well, it's very easy. You hit Escape. See, my cursor is gone. I'll do it again. Right? So here's my cursor. It's right here. If I hit Escape, it goes away. I now have access to a bunch of keyboard shortcuts. They're very easy to use. If I want to add a cell above this, an empty cell, an empty gray box, I just hit A. And I can keep doing that. If I were to add a cell below, all right, I hit Escape and I hit B. I can add as many as I want. If I have a bunch of cells I do not want, look at, I have all these extra cells. I can hit Escape and I can hit X. Okay. Be careful what cell you have highlighted. Right now, I wanted to delete this empty one, but this is the one that's actually highlighted. If I hit X, it goes away. If I accidentally delete a cell, come here to Edit, Undo, Delete Cell. There it is back. So just make sure you're in the correct cell. Okay, so let's get rid of these. Two more important things. If you like to take notes in your cells, in your program, there are two ways to do it. The first is if you use the pound sign, the number 3, so Shift and the number 3. This is the Disney file import statement. That's it. It's bright green. The pound sign means that it is not code. It is not going to be run. So if I do it and I hit Shift Enter, it runs fine. If I forget this pound sign and I hit Shift Enter, I get an error, invalid syntax. That's because this is the Disney file import statement, is not Python code. It's trying to run that as code, but it's not code, so I get an error. So hit that pound sign and run your code. You can do this within your cells. Another way of doing it, open up an empty cell, Escape A. Let's say I want to do something more. This is the Disney file import statement. This code is for week 1, week 2. I am learning Python. Okay, let's say you want to write a bunch of code. You don't want to put it all in one cell. I'm sorry, not a bunch of code. Let's say you want to write a bunch of text, notes. Maybe you want to take all your notes in the Python notebook. That's fine. Write whatever you want. What you can do is come up here. You see this drop-down box. See how it says code. If you want to change it to Markdown, it puts a different indentation on it. And what this means is you run the cell once, and there you go. It converts it to text. If you want to go back and change it, just double-click, and it goes back to that. So you can write literally as much text as you want here. So we'll put a period sign, commas, whatever you want. There you go. It just puts it as plain text. Double click to get it back. Escape X if you want it to go away. The last piece of advice I have for right now is let's come down to here. Just any bit of code. Let's come here. Okay, so let's say I did something wrong, right? I only have one quote instead of two, and I try and run my code. I'm going to get an error. And sometimes you're going to get code errors that are very long, sometimes that are very short, all different lengths depending on what your error is. But give an idea of the last line. You don't care about this. A lot of times there's going to be much more going on above here. What you want to do is look at the last line of code. It says invalid syntax, and it's referring to this line because this is the last one that's printed. So in there's a problem. Your job is going to be to figure out what that was. It is going to be frustrating and hard at first, but you will figure it out. Let's see what happens. Maybe I can get a different example where there. Okay, this is what I was looking for. It's a lot longer. Okay, error type, all this stuff going on. Error type's what matters. First argument must be an iterable or pandas object. You pass an object of the type data frame. Right, so that's because I passed the wrong type of file. I passed two files here where I should have had him as a list. Okay, great. This doesn't probably help you a ton, but what you're going to need to do as you're learning, copy this, open up a new tab, search for it. The absolute best resource is Stack Overflow. I use it every day. May not be the first one you come across, but look, somebody has a data frame, they're using concat, they're coming up with this error. This error matches what you got. Okay, scroll down, look for some answers. You want to find ones that have votes. These are votes. If you find one, this one has 38 votes, it's probably a good answer. This one has 0, it's probably not a good answer. So you want to do that. Google is your friend. Google errors, you're going to find so many that match what you're coming across. I honestly do use it every day. Let's see. Pandas merge two data frames. Okay, you're going to come across tons of answers. Scroll down, here's your Stack Overflow. Look at this one, pandas merging. 329 people liked this question. This answer was upvoted or voted as a good answer 455 times. Now we don't know how to merge data yet. You're going to learn that. We just concatenated it. But if you had a question about it, Google has the answer, and almost always what you will find is Stack Overflow has the best solutions. So those are the steps that you need for your first, I guess, practice assignment. What you'll notice is that the code you're writing when you're in data camp actually matches the code you're writing here in Python Jupyter notebooks. There is no difference. It's just where you're writing it. So here you're writing it in your own notebook you can save to your computer. You're able to customize it the way you want. On data camp you're using their I guess coding environment. It's great to learn the coding, but it's also exciting, it's also useful and helpful to put it into your own I guess way of doing so, and that's why we use Jupyter notebooks. You save the notebook, you can close the notebook, right? You can open the notebook back up. I think we called it this one. I don't remember. Nope, sorry. We called it this one. And there it is. If you ever need to restart everything, come up here, go to kernel, restart and clear output. It's going to just restart the whole program. Your numbers are going to reset. That 1, 5, 29 will go away. All the output in the white areas will go away. Your code won't go away, but all the output will. So then you're able to just start over, shift enter, shift enter, shift enter, and so on. So that is what we're going to look at for week 2. We're just going to kind of dive in. Next week we're going to get into a little bit more working with the data. I'll have a video again next weekend guys, let me know. Discuss on the discussion boards, talk to each other, help each other out. If you know somebody else who's in the class, I have no problem with you working with them on this stuff. If you want to reach out to each other in email. Again, this is for you guys. This isn't graded. I just want to make sure that you are comfortable working with Python, working with data. That's the real point of this class, is just to get you comfortable working with data sets in a new environment. So with that, let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, keep going on the Data Camp Week 2 assignment. Please work through this. You have the answers. I will post my code. I will post the data sets and everything probably first thing Monday morning, along with this video, which will either go out Sunday evening or Monday morning. And let me know if you have any questions.